While we're working to get Muneeb back, let's go ahead. I think I'll just start and dive in with kind of like the high level and everything. So as I mentioned, obviously, if you were listening last week to the spaces or the town hall space, or if you were on the internet reading the blog, you will know that we announced the official name of StacksLab as the new operational entity. I'm going to be leading the initial kind of interim CEO, really just with the whole job of getting it off the ground and working. So the whole goal there is obviously get the organization set up. There's a ton of work that goes into that, just with all the legalities and everything. Get the initial employees over there and hired, open up all of the key roles, especially the Stacks CMO role, which I know we've all wanted for a while and have had plenty of conversations on. And then just generally start making an impact like as fast as absolutely possible, because that's obviously kind of the name of the game here. So my idea for today is once we get Muneeb back, let him talk a little bit about the stuff he's been working on in Stacks and things. And then other than that, I just wanted to do this as an AMA. So if you've got questions and you want to come up and ask, go ahead and just throw that hand on up and we'll bring people up. You can also, if you don't want to come up on stage, you can just reply to the tweet by clicking the little reply button in the lower right-hand corner thing that looks like a little bubble thing. You can just throw it your question there, and we'll do it. Also, if you see, I have no idea too if I'll actually be able to see people's hands up, because again, it's Twitter. You never know if it's actually going to work. And so if you notice that anyone has their hand up and I'm not identifying them as having their hand up, please flag that to me.
Okay, I got you, sir. I got you.
Yeah.
I'll monitor the requests as well, so you can just run the show.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. So yeah, like I said, throw those up and let's start. Let's kick off the thing. In the interim, I'll talk about kind of like everything that's going on right now and the work that we're doing. So as of right now, I think as of Thursday, the Stacks Endowment Foundation in the Cayman Islands officially exists. There still obviously doesn't have like accounts or anything yet, but the legal entity that it will be exists. The next step is we're now actually creating the StacksLab entity. And I think that's actually should be going through like today or tomorrow or something. It's obviously necessary so we can do things like go buy a Google Workspace account so that we can have, email addresses, which is kind of important. Get everything set up, actually be able to like employ people and things. It's kind of crazy how much it takes to get these different organizations set up. I talked about this a little bit on the space last week, but just making sure we get this all right is really critical. Because we want to make sure that, like, for instance, U.S. tax authorities can't come and say, like, hey, you owe us money for this thing. And, it's sort of like putting in a few extra weeks of work and being very deliberate right now so that we move past any of the kind of historical overhead and regulatory issues that we've had so that we can move really, really fast going forward. Once that's all done, the first groups that are going to be coming over to StacksLab and being a part of all this, number one, obviously, is the core development team. So right now, that's kind of split across, you've got like 4 core developers at Trust Machines. We've got 4 at Hero. There's several at the Foundation. There's like 10 or 12 total with Adriano over at Bitcoin L2 Labs. And by the way, this is a huge point of progress. For anyone who's been around the ecosystem for a bit, you'll remember even a couple of years ago, we had like maybe 6 core developers. And we were talking about how we really needed to get that number up to like 20. And we're like there now. We really have. Adriano in particular has done a ton of hiring. As he came over, he immediately was able to bring a bunch of people from his network who've made a ton of contributions already. but we're still been split across a bunch of different orgs. And so those are some of the first thing that's moving over is all of the core developers onto a single core dev team with some different specialties and things going on at Bitcoin. From these, kind of 4 different orgs and moving all into StacksLabs together. Obviously, marketing. I mentioned the CMO role. We've obviously already got a solid 5 or 6 different marketing people in the ecosystem. But again, they have to do a lot of work cross-org right now. It's split across several different entities and things. And so being able to get them all in together and working under one group is, I think, going to be amazing for how quickly we move there. Same thing for the BD team. Also going to be moving over, as I mentioned, this is that Hero's going to be narrowing, kind of like getting even more specific on its focus for developer infrastructure. So it's really all going to be about, obviously, the API. We're working on some more like hosted node products for people. So if you want your own self-hosted, if you want your own node, so you can actually like go straight to the DB, but you don't want to have to host it yourself or deal with it, we'll be able to do that. So like direct RPC access and things. And then Chainhook 2.0. I see Roth is on the call here. He's been leading a lot of that work. And we'll actually probably have a dedicated office hour space on that one coming soon as it comes out. And then all of the stuff that Hero's kind of traditionally done that I like to call the good of the ecosystem things. So like the Stacks Explorer, Stacks.js, Clarinet, those things that just kind of like have to exist for the ecosystem to keep running. Those products and things are also going to move over to StacksLabs. And again, our hope there really is just that by keeping them even closer to the core dev team, it's going to be easier to make them like update faster, that as we like make changes, we can iterate at different parts of the stack more quickly, and just everyone kind of can work together a little bit better, a little bit faster on things. So those are going to kind of be the first things that are all happening and moving over to labs and going for it. Let's see. Peace. Any questions you got so far from folks?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just it seems like one of the things people are maybe, because the endowment funding is obviously the big focus from a lot of the community, but the organizational advantage of having everything a little bit more cohesive, functioning together, and the efficiencies we can create out of this entity is actually a huge value add for the ecosystem as well. Like you said, it's not just that we had a shortage of devs, but it was hard to kind of, who do I reach out to for this issue? Who do I reach out to for that issue? And it gives us a little bit more of a focus of where to go moving forward as a community, as an ecosystem. I do want to take a real quick moment to shout out that Sam from Stacks Nigeria, now heading up or a main part of the Stacks Africa group, had a StacksLabs project where he was bringing in developers out of Nigeria, and he actually coordinated with the foundation to give up the StacksLabs handle on X. So huge shout out to Sam for that, and for keeping it warm for us. I want to recognize, because he does a tremendous amount of work for our ecosystem as well. So shout out to Sam for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really glad we were able to get that worked out, because obviously we weren't going to just like come in and start using that name. Sam's done like a lot of work for the community for a long time and been a big part of that. So I wanted to like make sure that we're doing that with him on it. Any other questions that you've noticed kind of from folks in like the chats and stuff since the announcement last week?
So there was a little bit of I think some of the announcement with the short-term funding and some of where that's been earmarked for maybe was a little bit misunderstood for the full onset of available funding for certain projects and community. So I think that there were some questions about that, and maybe just some clarification for people that this is just an early round of funding, because we know that there's a need in the space. There is a way for people to apply for that, and but that is not the whole of the funding. You do not have to have your proposal prepared in the next short term to get funding for a long-term vision project kind of thing.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. overall, there's going to be a huge number of new grant programs that are being totally worked. But obviously, it's going to take at least a couple, it's going to take 2 or 3 months to get that all up, right? The orgs have to fully exist. In order to do that, obviously, we have to have people in there actually running the programs, doing these things, thinking through how to do it right, how to balance everything. So all of that is coming, and all of that will be up and running certainly by the end of the year on it. But we also wanted to start deploying the SIP31 resources before that, right? We didn't want to be stuck waiting for that. And so that's where like the Stacks Foundation is coming in and going to do these initial grants and get money out and deployed to people ASAP. So that'll go into things like some of, like the DeFi programs we've talked about, another round of, oh my God, I think Muneeb's actually here. Let me finish this thought and then I'll check in with Muneeb. Another round of D grants is happening. There will be some other direct allocations, some kind of like stuff that looks like that community grant stuff. The main goal is if you check out the blog post that has the up-to-date tracker, there's a blog post on the Stacks Foundation blog that has the up-to-date tracker with kind of all the setup schedule and everything like that. It's got links to some of these applications. But yeah, as you were saying, this is not the only money. It is simply the first round of money that we want to get out like within 2 weeks and start having an impact. And it's only meant to cover kind of over the next 6 to 8, maybe 10 weeks while we get the more permanent grant programs set up and those can take over. So yes, there's plenty more resources on the way and coming. It's just a matter of, again, having impact as we go. So, all right, Muneeb, can you unmute? Can you actually hear us and talk?
Back from Twitter help.
Oh my God. Guys, I literally have like 30 messages in my Signal chat with Muneeb right now where he's like, I have fully uninstalled Twitter from my phone and reinstalled and it still won't let me. Finally, I had to go back. Anyways, whatever. Muneeb, how are you doing?
Good, I'm good.
So we've been talking a bit. We just got started on kind of recapping a lot of the news as of late, getting people to hopefully add some questions and stuff into the chat. I think the place I'd love to kick off with you recently is like, what have you been working on in Stacks recently?
Yeah, so I think maybe before I dive into that, I saw some messages in response to this that, hey, what are you cooking and stuff. I think first thing that I think people should realize is Stacks is basically all I do. Like it's my full-time job. That's the only thing that I work on. Yeah, there are different sort of like entities within the ecosystem through which I'm involved. But broadly speaking, I think that's sort of like my only focus, my full-time focus. This is what I sort of like live and breathe. Even for this entire SIP31, the entire restructuring, I think I was like more in the background, maybe publicly, and letting the community sort of like run with things. But I was involved with it from the beginning, right? Like even some of the initial idea generation, thinking about the next 5 to 10 years of the ecosystem, what are the resources needed, what are all the different problem areas we were trying to hit. And I was actually enjoying a lot of the process where I think we as a project are only going to be successful if, there are many leaders in the ecosystem, there is a very strong community, many different entities and people pushing things forward. Like it can't be linked just to the effort of a handful of people, or definitely not like one person, right? So I think it was amazing to see how everyone was coming together and improving the initial ideas. And if things are generally heading in a direction where I think this is great, then I don't need to do anything, right? Like that's the best case scenario. Where there were certain things where I felt like we could improve certain areas, or I had strong opinions on where things were going. Like I would jump in and have one-on-one calls, or in group settings, or just chat with the community and try to nudge things there. And I must say I'm like very happy with where things ended up. These days, like with that context in mind, I think most of where my time and sort of like brain cycles are going, a big part is self-custodial SBDC. Right, I've been catching up on what's going on outside the ecosystem. There is apparently a BitVM 4 coming instead of 3. There is some pretty interesting work from Alpen Labs, these new types of circuits called blocks or something like that. Some of the OG rootstock people, like their CTO for the longest time was no longer there. He's working on a BitVM X, like sort of like a fork of that. And I think what I truly believe in is that, given the strength of our ecosystem and everything else we have going for ourselves, I think we need to be at the cutting edge of the self-custodial Bitcoin game, and I think that's going to be a big game changer. I'm obviously intellectually curious about that myself, and want to understand it, want to make sure that it aligns with the Stacks product roadmap. So that's one thing I'm sort of like deeply interested in, and I think that then starts to play a role into a lot of other things as well. Like, for example, we know we currently have the SBDC incentive program running. How that is going to evolve, I think I want to be very close to that process, because I think that's the thing that eventually leads to self-custodial Bitcoin. Because right now, let's call it a 3% yield on SBDC. I think the yield is high because there's some risk that people are taking, right? Like they're going over the set of signers and the code base, and that's why the yield needs to be high enough for this 5,000 BTC to be here. Right now, I know it's still capped, but the biggest delta effect that we can have is not by increasing yields. Of course, as the DeFi economy takes off, there are going to be more yielding opportunities and people who want to use Bitcoin on chain. But I think the biggest delta is actually reducing the risk, and the self-custodial BTC is what reduces the risk. And I think reducing that risk is what opens up the doors to billions of Bitcoin being deployed. And I have a very strong sort of like viewpoint and belief in that. So I think that's very, very important. So that's one thing. The other thing is it's almost like we're starting a new chapter, right? Like with the restructuring, with the new operational entity. Very excited that Alex ended up sort of like helping set up the initial StacksLabs, and as interim CEO, I think he's definitely the most experienced executive in the ecosystem. Really glad that he's bringing in his expertise to help get that going, and I think we want to put our best foot forward. And I think we're sort of like compiling a really great team. Of course, there are going to be new hires as well, and then some existing people from the ecosystem that make the most sense to be at labs should be there. But I'm viewing that as almost like a new chapter, a fresh start in a way. We've come a long way. It depends on how you count. If you want to count from the original offering from late 2017, that was like many years ago. If you want to count from mainnet, that was early 2021. That's still almost like 4 or 5 years. I think 5 years is a big chapter, and I think now we want to start thinking about the next 5 years and the structures that we are setting up today. I'm pretty sure that they're going to be around 5 years from now, and we'll be operating pretty much in these structures. So I think it's very important to set them up right. So I'm heavily involved on the Treasury Committee, some of the legal entities that were being set up, like how the bylaws are there, because these are things you can't change, right? Like once the setup is done, the bylaws are written and so on. They're extremely hard to change. Some of the things, many different things you can change, and then same for the operational efficiency that we want to get out of the new structure. We want to make sure that actually happens. So sort of like studying the ecosystem from a fresh eye, and same with the entities that I'm more directly involved with, like for example Trust Machines. Over there, I don't know how much that is already public, but happy to share here. I think we're definitely, as the ecosystem is sort of like restructuring, we are also trying to adapt at Trust Machines and make sure that we fit in to the new reality. So some of the things that we're doing is we're trying to make the apps that Trust Machines was building more independent. Right, so Leather is of course one of the wallets that we have, and then there is Granite, there is Orange Domains, and so on. And we want these applications to become more independent. What that means is that they're likely going to have their own resources, their own sort of like teams, on budgets. We might have to hire certain leaders as well to make sure that these apps are sort of like independent. And then Trust Machine can start functioning more as a fund, right? And an incubator as well, but I think for at least for the coming 6 months, more like a fund, and then we'll start incubating more applications, because I think the new sort of like Stacks infrastructure needs to settle in a little bit, and we need to see how the existing apps are playing out before we start incubating more. And these are the things that get me really excited, right? Like there are already some new application ideas that I'm getting pretty excited about, and I think we'll use our Trust Machine incubator to throw some of those applications out in the ecosystem. So that work is both exciting but also time consuming as well, right? Like when you're restructuring an ecosystem, you're restructuring a company, you're doing a lot of communications with the investors, you're even with the SIP31 thing. One of the roles that I played was just managing expectations with very large investors and very large holders, because those are some of the people that I have direct relationships with. And of course, people had a lot of questions about SIP31, what's happening. And I think it actually went very smoothly. Like imagine if a lot of large holders, they sort of like panicked and they didn't really fully understand why this is happening, why the emission curve is changing and so on. So I think spending time with them, educating them through the process, walking them through the next 5-10 year vision, what we want to do, that was something that was very helpful as well. And I think looking into the next 6 months, one sort of like contribution that I can bring directly to the endowment and the labs as well would be sort of like, any creative ideas around sort of like fundraising. By fundraising, what I mean is, getting good terms for, getting large sophisticated investors to come in and maybe buy some STX at really good terms. I think that's something that I can directly contribute to, and I've been talking to Alex about that as well. So those are some of the things. Let me pause there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the pretty clutch support you gave, I think, around a lot of the support setup of the endowment, and making sure that investors were comfortable with it. Obviously, there's a lot of institutional investors who've backed us for a long time, and I think a lot of them ended up being not just like okay with it, but very excited about SIP31 and what it was going to mean, and that was like awesome to see on it. And then obviously how we manage the endowment, getting a good CIO, making sure that like some of those private sales of STX initially are done at good rates. Like we want obviously to make sure that like the community is getting the most bang for their buck on it. So that's been absolutely great to see. Anything else that you've been kind of thinking about, or that's like top of mind for you about Stacks, or that you want to see kind of like other people working on or pushing forward on?
Yeah, I think one of the things is definitely about the new roles as well, right? So I plan to be pretty heavily involved in some of these roles that we would be looking for. You mentioned the CIO one. For the longest time, the community has been asking for a CMO, and I think that's something where I do want to spend a lot of time, like thinking about, okay, if we're trying to unlock the next level of growth for the ecosystem, what's the type of skill set that we want to attract to the ecosystem, and how do we enable them to have the most impact? And then sourcing some of those people as well, right? So I've been in the industry for a while, trying to use my network and trying to see people who are really, really top caliber to be able to source them for some of these roles. and help sort of like bring them into the process pipeline, so we can sort of like have a high quality sort of like candidate pipeline. I think that would be something very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. That would make a huge. I literally can't think of right now things that, especially just filling in some of the expertises that we have not traditionally had in the ecosystem, right? And like we've never had the need for a CIO before, and we've had some great marketing people, but again, spread out, and we need to like getting that talent in is I think one of the things that's really going to start moving the needle, especially given the resources that they now have to work with on things. Let's see.
So I apologize. There's been a couple of requests that come up, and I tried to give people the mic, and it doesn't seem to be functioning. So
yeah, I was gonna say I don't even see Muneeb as a speaker right now. I see Muneeb as a listener because So
we do have a couple of questions from Anthony Fiore in the comments where he's asking two things. Number one, are there any new apps on the way? Anything you can share with us about that?
New apps in general on it.
I guess I'm thinking, new apps for the ecosystem. Anything in the pipeline?
Yeah. So, okay. One thing I know being worked on, I don't know how much you can say, but like what I'll say is I know that there is a group working on basically a product to make it a lot easier for people to deploy into Stacks DeFi. I think this is one thing that you've definitely seen in some other ecosystems, and especially for like, look, I'm a DeFi DJ, and I think I've got money in each of the different dexes. I probably have money in every single Stacks DeFi app through one of my wallets. Just, little bits a lot of the time, but I want to be using everything. And one of the things is it's really complicated, man. And like, even once you figure it out, and this is not, to be clear, something that's anything wrong or different about Stacks DeFi. This is just DeFi in general, right? And just like keeping track of it and making sure you're claiming your rewards and all those things. And so there's a little bit of like that, old TV thing of there has to be a better way. And there absolutely is. And so I know that there's a group working on exactly that right now. And basically how can we like really simplify deploying into DeFi for people where they don't even have to think about it that much. They can just kind of put some money in a place and things go out and like happen automatically for them. So I'm really excited to see some iteration around that, and that hopefully dropping soon.
So another question coming from Hua Win, the founder of SDX City, one of our super apps. He's asking, when tier 1 stablecoin? That's a great question.
Yes, that is a great question. I don't know, again, this falls into, what I'd say is, what I know I can say is this is super high priority. There's a lot of work being done on it. Sit tight soon is what I'll say. Like I'll check with the team and see what we can talk about. Muneeb, I don't know if you know what we can say on this.
I would just add a general comment that any tier 1 stablecoin, when they're going to any chain, they don't let the chain say anything about it. Right?
Yeah.
So
like we can't say anything until it's actually live, basically.
That's their policy, right? So we just need to work through that. And that's, again, I'm just making a general comment for any chain. That's the policy that tier 1 stablecoins follow.
So even if there was news, this is the interpretation for the crowd. Even if there was news, we wouldn't be able to talk about it today yet.
Yeah, their policies, it gets treated very similar to like, public company stock things and things. Like until you are ready and allowed to make a public statement about it, you can't give any kind of public statements about it. And that's it's unfortunately just like the way it works.
So we have another question. Do we have an anticipation timeline for the next SBTC unlock?
Yes. So I don't want to give a firm date on that right now. What I'll say is this has been worked on in line with the dual stacking stuff. I know I think I saw a comment or a question yesterday or something from someone on Twitter about like, what's the deal? What's dual stacking and things. I think one of the things we're looking at right now is basically how to use some of the dual stacking stuff, things in line with the SBTC rewards program and unlocking SBTC. So I think that is probably what I'll say is I think the next main kind of product chain milestone thing you can expect to see. Like I said, don't have a firm date on it, but it's like the next thing is going to be just opening up SBTC and removing the cap. I think entirely is probably where we end up there.
Nice. Yeah, and there was also, I did know that there was something yesterday about dual stacking as well. I know people are super excited about that. And just my own take on dual stacking, I think it's a great way to kind of incorporate making SBTC a primary asset on Stacks while still creating a value loop cycle where Stacks STX is needed and very much part of the ecosystem as well. I think it's a brilliant development.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think that's going to be huge for things overall. Like it just makes a lot of sense.
Right. I think that's all of the questions on here. I don't see any more in the chat. I don't have any current requests. Guys, if you are making requests, again, I apologize. I have approved some and it's just not pulling people up here for some reason. So keep asking if you are, but I think that's all the questions we have for right now.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through my replies too and seeing if there are any others right now. If you haven't, let's see, other things I want to plug is that if you have not gone to the Stacks forum already and commented on the CMO job description that was posted with what you want to see there. Again, there's a lot of different models of CMO there that exist out there. I've got some thoughts on what we'll do there, but like I really want to know what members of the community are prioritizing there and think that we need. So please, if you've got any thoughts on there, go to the forum, add those to them so that we're factoring that all in there. We talked about this a lot actually during the SIP process, but like one of my big hopes is that kind of a bunch of people getting their first taste of kind of governance and engagement in the community would use that as an opportunity to get involved more. So this is a great opportunity for you to do that. When visions BTC as CMO? Thanks, Mr. Wolf. So, I don't know, maybe like we are chatting today. I actually just had to move it on him because I got a cross-scheduled meeting, but he was very gracious about being able to swap that. So thanks, Pete. Where is the forum? The forum is at forum.stacks.org, and PeaceLove very conveniently just dropped a link to that up at the top of the page. So you can go over there pretty much, if you're looking to be involved in Stacks, right? There's like 3 main places that are sort of like the official things. And I'll leave Twitter as like the unofficial space for it. But in particular, forum.stacks.org. Anytime we're kind of looking to just have very open conversations with people, that's usually where it's going to be. So for instance, that's where the first draft of like the SIP was posted when we just wanted conversation about it. And then of course the second place is GitHub, right? So all of the official kind of like technical conversations and things, those are always going to be happening up over on GitHub. So if you're in those 2 places,
we had GPSC up on stage, but it looks like he fell off, and that's too bad because I wanted to shout him out. I'm going to shout him out anyway. He's probably, if not the MVP of the community right now, he's one of. So huge shout out to GPSC and what he's been cranking on multiple fronts in our ecosystem. Yeah, he's prolific these days.
Actually, and so kind of 300. I noticed just tweeted, are you bullish on the content creators, especially those pushing the ecosystem and using AI? As long as you're using AI in a good way, please don't just publish a bunch of AI-driven slop. But no, I mean, I think AI is incredible for stuff. Man, over the weekend, I ran 4 entirely like completely unrelated different projects using AI. I completely re-architected a bunch of YAML code for like my home automation system stuff. I had to review contracts using it. I summarized an entire book using it. I also finally I totally see why people think I've been heavy on ChatGPT for a while, but I totally see why Claude is like a little bit better and sharper on it. I was having a conversation with a friend where they were talking about something philosophical and I had no idea what the fuck they were talking about. And so I literally just pasted what sounded like this nonsensical sentence to me into ChatGPT, and it literally just spit out like a couple paragraphs giving me all the context and making it sound like I knew what I was talking about on. Not just that, it actually genuinely helped me understand what the hell they were saying and doing it. So I think like the number one thing I'd say is that if you're using AI for content and stuff, use it to generate ideas, use it to help yourself understand new contexts and concepts that you didn't understand. Use it as a writing partner where you take something that you wrote and you put it into the system. You say, hey, how can this be better? Give me critique, right? The same way you'd work through it with a friend. But when it comes to like the actual, like the vast majority of the actual words that go onto the page and get pushed out, like those should be from you. It's going to sound better, it's going to look better, and it's just going to make you a better writer and better at doing that. So that would be like my one really big recommendation on it.
The AI doesn't do anything without us, but we actually, and 300, by the way, he fittingly has the BNS name AIassassin.btc, which I gifted to him because he is heading up the Stacks AI Guild. We have an AI guild now, producing content driven in a way to amplify messaging we want to get out into the ecosystem. And 300 has been, he did a tutorial space this morning on today's show showing people how to use these. And it takes a lot of work. You've got to refine your prompts. There is a lot of work there. But there are some guys in our space that are really developing these skills in a driven way. We're very fortunate to have this kind of community engagement.
Yeah, no, I saw Woe Buddy here earlier. I am not seeing him now. But he's obviously been working on, the AI, BTC AI dev stuff for a while. And so, AI is not going anywhere. But like I said, I really prefer it at the most when it's used to enable humans rather than try and replace them.
Yeah, huge shout out to the AI BTC dev guys too. Great stuff that they're working on, like next level kind of stuff actually. Going to be we got some cool tools coming to the ecosystem.
Yeah, what's up guys? Muneeb, Alex, Leonardo, peace, love. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day today. Yes, a big shout out to Hannah, actually, showing the different workflows, enabling creators to learn how to use these AIs to their advantage, different use cases with content creation, management, time management. There's so many ways that you can use these tools to your advantage. You can even use, chat PRD and, spin up a product requirement, document, and then plug that into lovable.dev and have, a functioning website, for whatever you want to try to build within this ecosystem. The tools are getting better and better and better. And I spoke about this a long time ago, how the space would, kind of move from a place where you need a dev for everything and to a space that is more catered towards the people with ideas that want to build, right? Of course, you're going to want to need a dev that's going to help you walk through and know what everything is, what's working under the hood, and help fine tune the product that you're trying to deliver. But I love that the space is, becoming more feasible, to the people with ideas to build, right? It's really cool how AI has advanced in the last 6-7 months. It's mind-blowing, actually.
Yeah, one of the things actually that we've been working on with our DevRel team, so if any of you guys know Ryan Waite's who was a founder in the Stacks ecosystem, now works on kind of docs and DevRel for SVero. One of the things we were talking about is how the advancement of AI, like especially when you're looking at docs and some of the content that we put out, it's not just about like making sure the docs are readable by AI agents, but how do you actually shift your content strategy to enable a different type of builder who now can build things with AI, right? And like, I'm a good example of this. I am not a software developer, but I can write a fair amount of code now using AI in a way that I couldn't before. But that also means I'm probably looking for something different in the documentation and in the help guides and things getting started than I would be if I was a, quote unquote, like software developer or a smart contract developer or something.
Yeah, another thing that I'm really excited about that I saw announced was D grants, cohort number 3. Coming. I can't wait to hear about that on Thursday, right? And the organized came out of D grants, so I'm excited to see what other projects secure some funding, some community grassroots level projects that get their starts through the D grants network. So I'm excited to see more community based initiatives, to where we can find how we can help the builders on the ground floor get their start, right, and connect them with a network of builders, because that's what we have here. Is we have a real deal passionate, talented community that wants to build here. Really excited to see what comes out of it.
Absolutely. And actually that ties into like speaking of things. So I just saw, I noticed there's a question from Mr. Wagme where he was saying, could the development of dual stacking open up additional technical abilities that could leverage the relationship between STX and BTC? I think definitely. A lot of this comes down to actual like implementations and how we prioritize and trade off. But like, speaking of community proposals, I'm crazy bullish on Larry's. For anyone who hasn't seen Larry Salibra's SIP proposal to use Bitcoin addresses for